4 women, 40 men, and a deserted island. What kind of dangerous closeness will unfold? TV journalists are reviewing street footage about a prison island. 3 years ago, the death penalty for those convicted of first-degree murder was replaced with exile. Now, criminals are sent to San Bernardino Island, better known as Prison Island. Escape from the island is impossible because it's surrounded by minefields and the only small passage for boats is guarded by military destroyers. The journalists are preparing to shoot a new film and plan to feature those who have recently been sent to the island. There's Bobby, who took part in a $2 million robbery. Lee Phillips, who blew up a bank after it refused to transfer money to her account. Eddie Collins, who killed a police officer. Bunny Campbell, who murdered her parents. Joyland, who poisoned her husband. And Dr. Norman Milford, a serial killer. The newest addition to the island's population is Carmen Sims. The TV crew is pleased, they've got some good material. Carmen is escorted to the island by a policeman who reads her rights and drops her off. The first thing she notices in the coastal waters are the bodies of deceased female prisoners. She sets up camp for the night, unaware that a man is watching her from the cliffs. She struggles to start a fire, and then a stranger comes down to the shore. He offers Carmen some local tobacco, but she declines. It's Dr. Milford. He explains that the others are camped nearby and that there are now about 40 people left. Carmen asks about the number of women on the island, but the man says he wishes there were more and remarks that everyone on the island is a killer, except for him, as he's innocent. Carmen gives a knowing smile, of course. The doctor leaves, and Carmen remains on the beach for the night. The next morning, she heads to the prisoners' camp. Meanwhile, Bobby, who has taken charge of the camp with his loyal assistant Mac, emerges from his hut. Carmen boldly enters the camp and sees a lot of men and only 3 women. She tries to strike up a conversation with Bobby's right-hand man, but he quickly asserts his authority. Carmen cries out, but no one offers help, not even the women, who silently retreat to their hut. Later that evening, the women of the camp find Carmen asleep on their mattress. After a scuffle, she tries to leave, but they won't let her. The women explain that they are the most valuable commodity on the island, and no one is going to let them go. Carmen is determined to change the system, but the next morning she has no choice but to join in the work with the others, plowing the land for a future garden. After a long day of hard labor, Carmen asks if anyone has ever tried to stand up to Bobby and his gang. She's told that there are some escapees, but no one can guarantee they're any better. Occasionally, fights break out among the men, but Bobby and Mac quickly and ruthlessly put them down. During the day, the women work on building a storage shed. Carmen's hands are rubbed raw, and the doctor tries to help her, but the overseer drives him away. In the evening, the women get themselves ready, but when Monk enters, he announces that they all have a night shift ahead, except for Bunny. She belongs to Bobby and only goes to him. The next morning, the women distribute food to the men and witness a fight break out. Afterward, the dead man is simply thrown off a cliff as part of the island's burial ritual. After lunch, the women's group, under the guard of several prisoners, heads to the stream to do laundry. At that moment, they are ambushed by escaped convicts, those who refuse to live under Bobby's rules. The escapees kill the guards and take the women with them. Furious, Bobby orders his men to find and retrieve the women. Later that night, the group sits by the campfire, eating their freshly caught game, imagining how furious Bobby must be. Gradually, new relationships begin to form among the group, not out of force but mutual affection. However, Teller feels left out and it bothers him. He starts a fight, but the others quickly put him in his place. There will be no violence here. The next morning, the group prepares to move on as they change campsites every day. The women are tired of constantly running. At the stream, Lee finds saltpeter. By adding sulfur and chalk, they can make black powder to create grenades. Meanwhile, Carmen brings a poisonous herb which can be turned into curare poison. Her grandmother, who was fond of magic, taught her this skill. Bobby, meanwhile, orders a thorough search of every bush on the island to find the escapees. The next morning, Bobby's men attack the camp, and a fierce battle ensues with several casualties. Cornell stays behind to buy time for the others to escape and faces off against Monk. The others flee, but one man is injured. To save him, Ade goes to get the doctor and brings him back to the camp, but sadly the doctor is too late to help. The following morning, the group discusses their situation. They can't keep running around the island forever. They must get rid of Bobby and his gang. Lee starts making grenades, and Carmen prepares the poison. They bury their fallen comrade, and the doctor decides to stay with the group. Meanwhile, in Bobby's camp, one of the prisoners builds a simple radio, and Bobby tunes in to the right frequency. The men grind the ingredients for gunpowder under Lee's supervision. Everything works out perfectly, and now they have real grenades, with only the fuse needing to be lit before throwing. At the same time, Bunny wanders off to the waterfall. She's found by Bobby's men, and Bobby overhears on the radio that a supply boat is scheduled to arrive in the morning. The group follows Bunny's trail and sees her being tied to stakes on the beach, where Bobby begins whipping her with a belt. The women want to help but realize they are no match for the gang. Just then, Bobby spots a police boat approaching, and he and his men hide in the rocks. The arriving police officers unload crates of supplies onto the shore. One of the officers, unable to hold back, rushes to help the injured woman. Meanwhile, a prisoner swims toward the boat, kills the remaining officer, grabs his rifle, and shoots those on the shore. The bandits, emerging from their hiding spots, arm themselves, leaving one to guard the boat, while the others head back to camp. The friends contemplate how to seize the weapons and decide the best approach is by water. One of them dives into the ocean, swims to the boat, and uses a blowpipe to shoot the guard. The bandit falls, and now the friends have a gun and the boat from which they drain the fuel. At this moment, the doctor sees Bunny and rushes to her aid. Back at the camp, Bobby accuses Monk of cowardice, but Monk defends himself, arguing that too many important people have already died. That night, around the campfire, the doctor reveals that he was convicted for turning off a life support machine for a patient who had already died, and he doesn't want to return to a place where everyone betrayed him. The next morning, the group heads toward Bobby's camp, but it's deserted. They strategize and split up to their designated positions. The women prepare gas cans, and when the time comes, Bunny is supposed to let the gasoline flow through the pipes to the storage and set it on fire. The others prepare for the attack. The first explosion takes out a bandit in the outhouse. Panic erupts in the camp, with no one understanding what's happening, but Bobby and Monk begin firing with the captured weapons. During the shootout, Cornell is killed. Bobby hides in the storage and keeps shooting. Then Lee grabs a grenade and runs toward the bunker. There's an explosion, but Bobby survives and shoots Lee in the back, killing her. A wounded Monk reaches Bobby's bunker and begs to be let in. Now they both shoot together. Monk is frustrated as Bobby wastes too much ammunition. Joy signals to Bunny, but she is in shock and can't remember what she's supposed to do. She rushes to help the injured but gets shot herself. The doctor then runs to her, hides her in a safe place, and runs to the pipes, releasing gasoline into the drainage and setting it on fire. Bobby realizes too late as the smell of gasoline hits him. There's an explosion that destroys the bunker, and a burning Bobby emerges. Furious, Eddie spots Monk and plans to shoot him but hesitates. In the aftermath of the explosion, Monk is severely burned and blinded. It's over. Peace and calm return to the camp. The people tend to daily chores. Even the blind Monk is involved carrying water. The doctor and Bunny walk toward the sea. The arriving police ask to speak with Dr. Milford, as there's a new trial awaiting him on the mainland, but the doctor replies that Milford is dead. He has no desire to return. This is his home now. A new woman steps onto the shore, greeted with the words, "Welcome to the prison island." This is one of the many films from the Women in Prison series that were popular in the 1970s when the fight for women's rights was a major topic in the United States. In these films, the inmates were always beautiful, often wrongfully imprisoned, and in the end, they achieved justice and found true love.